Welcome to the School of Health Radio, brought to you by 3asoh.com. That's 3asoh.com. We are the School of Health Radio. We are excited to journey with you in this health-oriented podcast. This podcast is on the subject of health, all manner of health, the physical, the mental, and even the spiritual, because our lives are greatly affected by our health, and it is the health or the lack thereof of others who also is affected. I am T. Christopher Smith, your host. I am the director of the Three Angels School of Health. I'm a 20-year missionary veteran. I have been training missionaries for 20 years. I have been a medical missionary for over 15 years. I'm a farmer by trade, that is a biological farmer. I have learned how to grow nutrient-dense and the healthiest of foods and not just food by quantity. And lastly, I'm a Christian. That means I love Jesus and the people for which he died. Moving on today into our podcast, I'm excited to talk to you about some things today. And I'm actually a little bit sad too, but I'm excited because I get to share these things with you. I'm sad at some of the news. We are still in the midst of this pandemic, this coronavirus pandemic, the disease COVID-19. And today is April Fool's Day. But sadly, nobody's laughing. You know, things are so serious and things are getting to be so heavy. There was an article on theweek.com reported today that a Chinese county that went largely unscathed by the novel COVID-19 coronavirus went into lockdown today or on Wednesday, signaling fears of a possible second wave in the country where the virus originated, that is in China. So theweek.com says that there's a county that wasn't hit, and it's seen now they're on lockdown. And in China, lockdown means lockdown. They're welding people's doors shut, is what they have been doing. As a matter of fact, 600,000 people in the county of Jiangyin, Henan province is now on lockdown after infections reportedly spread at a local hospital. Previously, that county only had 12 confirmed cases. The U.S. intelligence services, however, believe that China has been underreporting the actual number of cases. In news regarding that, because of the lockdown, there's some interesting reports that are coming up today. And a lot of people, a lot of reporters are going back and they're searching these things out and they're looking at things a little bit deeper. And some of the news coming out of China is actually very interesting regarding this social experiment of quarantining people. Chinese divorces are on the rise, news reports say. The quarantine is seemingly destroying the family fabric in China. According to Business Insider, one city is reported a high record of divorce requests. Now, officials say it is likely due to couples who have been in close quarters for long periods of time without access to the outside world. Who would have thought that people need access to the outside world? Who would have thought that forcing people to spend time together was a bad idea? Health officials explained that the increase could be explained by two factors. First, offices have been closed for a month, therefore many requests have been delayed. So you have a rush, a tidal wave of requests. But the second one is really interesting. It says the quarantined are forced to be in close quarters, creating an especially inflammatory environment. Now, that's an odd thing to have. You're married to somebody, you're expecting to live the rest of your life with them. At least that's what marriage used to be. But now it seems that things are not as they seem or as good as they could be. As a matter of fact, it says some, however, regret the decision to divorce. So in China, they go down to the office, they fill out the paperwork, and the divorce is granted right there. There is no long, drawn-out thing. But some people are regretting this decision and come back a few hours later and get remarried. Well, that is kind of a silver lining, but oh man, that's not good. In 2018, a study found that couples who live together before marriage have a lower divorce rates in the first year. Now, some people would say, see, it's better if you try out the shoes. I've often heard this analogy that, you wouldn't go buy a pair of shoes without trying them on, as if a husband or a wife or a pair of sneakers like I got here on the desk. But no, they say we should try it on, but the research continues. But they have a higher divorce rate in the 5 years following. So there's a higher divorce rate over the next 5 years for people who live together than for those who do not. Now, in other news, it's a bad time to be on a cruise ship. Dozens of foreign cruise ships are lined up at Port Miami and Port Everglades in Florida. Matter of fact, Carnival Cruise Corp says it has more than 6,000 passengers still at sea. 2 people on one of their ships have died of COVID-19, and 9 have tested positive for the virus, and they're being forced to stay out at sea by the U.S. Coast Guard. Another ship has reported a higher than normal number of people with flu-like symptoms. Oh, man. I can imagine. A lot of people that go on cruises, especially this time of the year, are those who are retired, those who have worked hard and have saved up their money. And cruises are expensive. You can get deals on them, and you can get a good deal. And a lot of times there are themed cruises. You can go on a Disney cruise, or you can go on different kinds of cruises. But could you imagine being stuck at sea? I remember going to Hawaii some years ago, and, I had friends that were born on the island that we were visiting, and then had people from the mainland that moved there. But they had this thing called island fever, and island fever was just that you get out there and you realize that you're stuck there, that you can't go anywhere else. Not that, many people who grow up in a town, you grow up in Oakland, California, you grow up in Santa Fe, you grow up in, whatever place that you are. Most people don't travel much farther outside of that, but knowing that you cannot is different. The human mind is very interesting. When you tell it that they cannot do something, it's then that they want to do it. And so people who live on the island and feel trapped because, they're from the mainland, they just know that they can go to another state. They can go to another place. They can drive for several hours. I was on one island, and, you can drive in, in less than a day, you can go around the island. And so imagine you're on a cruise ship. And especially people get sick, and the law of the seas, the captain says you have to stay in your room. And if you have one of these little rooms and you're there with someone, maybe you're not even there with your wife, maybe you're there with your whoever it is, or you're there with somebody, you might be there with your wife. But you can imagine the stress and the pressure that puts people under. And so it says that there are at least 6,000 passengers still at sea. We've already read that. It says in other news, Vice President Pence is asking Americans to heed the government's social distancing guidelines amid the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. The reason why he's mentioning this is because there are reports of churches that are gathering. And they're gathering, and it's a strange phenomenon that's happening because America is very different than other nations. America has the Bill of Rights. Those rights that are in the founding documents say that they're given them of God. They're not given them by the state. And so the state is not the arbiter of certain rights. And American people take it very seriously when you curtail their rights. And, over time, these rights have been eroding away. But many people of faith are finding themselves at odds with the COVID-19 or the response, the government's response to these things. And so Pence praised churches and synagogues and places of worship around America that are following the social distancing guidelines. A Florida pastor was arrested on Monday and charged with unlawful assembly and violation of public health emergency rules after holding a packed service on Sunday. Now, this pastor was arrested and charged, but he's not the only one. The police went to another church in Baltimore. I read in another article, but that church had 10 people in attendance. They were doing the social distancing. And not only were they doing the social distancing, but they had security outside of the sanctuary, and they locked the doors. So when the police tried to come into the service, they couldn't. They had to knock on the door. And when security opened the door and the police came in, and they called the pastor, and the pastor told them to have the police wait out until the service was over. Then the pastor came out and he explained, I am keeping, according to what you've said, the rules. And even though he was doing this, they called down and they said, well, what do we do? And the city managers or the city officials told them to break up the meetings. Now, I don't think that's going to go over very well for many people of faith here in America. Many are okay because they want people to be healthy. But there is a limit, I think. It seems to me like a showdown is coming over whether people will put their trust in the government or in God. And you have a strong segment of society that believes that the government is right and that we should do whatever it says. And then you have another strong segment of society that is faith-based, that they believe that God is stronger than any virus or any kind of disease, and they trust in the word of God. And it's interesting to me to see where this is going. These kind of showdowns have happened in the past with other governments in the scriptures, but to live through one like this is an amazing thing. Pence said that the country will be in a much better place by June 1st if every American will put these guidelines into practice. June 1st. Now, do you remember when they first put these things in? They just told everybody it's only going to be 2 weeks. It's only going to be 2 weeks, they said. And then, but the language was, well, at least 2 weeks, which showed that, these models that they've been looking at, that they are now showing, and day by day, they're bringing in the graphics. If you look at the news conferences that they put up at the White House. And so you'll see that at least 2 weeks. And then they said, okay, at least until the end of April is which the president's saying. But now this is saying until the end. So we're looking at almost that's an 8-week lockdown. And I'm not sure people can handle that. At least the majority of people, especially those who are unaccustomed to having their liberties curtailed. As a matter of fact, the news goes on today, some very interesting things. It says it seems as if that some, if not a few more, don't trust that the government as much as they do God, or at least their own selves. Some people, their God is themselves. Now, along with this news, other things are being reported. Domestic abuse calls are soaring as nationwide lockdown extends, a news report says. In California, that is Sacramento, stress related to the virus outbreak is causing job losses, limited savings, insurmountable debts, alcohol and drug abuse problems to cope with the financial pain. For many, the family home has become a pressure cooker, the report was saying. Wow, a pressure cooker. Who could have seen this happening? A certain wave of civil unrest is coming. At least that's what many of the high-end stores in Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, are believing as they board up windows to their stores. The same thing is happening in New York, San Francisco, Seattle, Chicago, Paris, Vancouver, and in other places around the globe. Companies are, these large high-end retailers, they believe that a tidal wave is coming of civil unrest. And so my question to you today is how long do you think our society can go on without physical and social contact? I know that some people have gone to the grocery store more in the last few weeks than they have in the last few months. And people are going to the grocery store. Why? Because there's an outlet. There they can at least see people. Other people, their lives were based or were founded in their religious experience. And their religious experience was not just their experience with themselves and with God, but with their fellow Christians and fellow parishioners, and maybe not even Christians, maybe their fellow Muslims or their fellow Sikhs or whoever they worship with. And so people of faith are at a crisis. You know, they read their books of faith, and the book is telling them to gather together, but the government is telling them that they should stay at home. And many are wondering, well, what do we do? Because we don't want to be the cause of others getting sick or dying. What do we do? Some families are having more contact now than they ever had. This forcing of the children to be home all day, with parents who also are not accustomed to being home when they're normally at work, is a powder keg in the making. Now, did you just hear the news that in many places school has been canceled for the rest of the school year? Do you hear that weddings are being canceled? You hear that the graduations are being canceled? Many students are being sent to go online, but it's very different because not all students are as good as doing things on the computer and other things. Things are really upside down in our society right now. And you know, it seems to me that just a small spark can cause this powder keg to blow. You know, and I'm afraid for our society. Because the generation that is now is not the same as the generation that went through the Great Depression of the 1930s. Those were more people of faith. Those were people who trusted in God and they believed in the American government, and they trusted that their best good was that was being done for them. And they recognized that the difficulties, you know, the Dust Bowl of the center of the nation, and that caused the Okies to spread from the Midwest to the coast and to the north and to the large cities. But we don't have that generation. We have the children and grandchildren of the boomers. And in this generation, it's called the snowflake generation. And I didn't call them that. This is what they're called because they can't handle any kind of stress or any kind of pressure. And upon them, they're being asked to sacrifice. And many are unaccustomed to doing anything but for anybody but themselves. And it's a frightening situation. And I'm not trying to scare you because you already know this if you're looking at the people in your home. And the people that maybe you work with, or the people who you know that aren't at work or that are struggling. You know, what shall we do then? Especially if this situation lasts longer than expected or longer than most people feel that they can handle. This is really a question that I wonder. What are we going to do? You know, a civil war can occur easily between the haves and the have-nots. And this is something that we really ought to think twice about. What kind of person are you being? What are you doing to handle the stress in your own family? What are you doing to handle the stress in your own life? How are you dealing with what's going on with your family? How are you dealing with what's going on with your work situation? How many people are living paycheck to paycheck, or had just a little, or were living off of their credit cards, and now they see that their lives are upending? Today was the first day of the month, and the question is how many people are going to pay rent? How many people are going to forego paying rent? What's going to happen to the economy? What's happening in your life? What are you doing? What are you doing to mitigate these things in your life? Are you like the Chinese? The Chinese are a communist nation, and as a communist nation, they don't believe in the Word of God. They don't believe in faith. You know, I just want to take a break here and talk to you about 3asoh.com. 3asoh.com is the sponsor of this podcast. This podcast is brought to you by 3asoh.com. 3asoh.com is a health education platform. 3asoh.com is your home for health education, with upcoming courses like how to boost your immune system, overcoming stress and depression, water therapy, food therapy, that is healing with food, massage for life, healing with herbs, mind cures, growing healthy foods. 3asoh.com for all your health education needs. 3asoh.com with courses coming soon. Well, what's the answer? What's the answer for the situation? What can we do? Because again, this is a thing. I never believed that the government has all the answers, because it's just foolishness. Because when you go back and you look at history, if you're any kind of a history buff, if you read anything in history, whether it's world history or Western history, you understand that governments rise and governments fall. But people have been the same. And the thing that's the same about people is that when people are under pressure and under stress, people respond. And often they look for someone to blame. It's rare that people will blame themselves for the decisions and the things that happen in their lives. And so to have civil unrest is something that I know that the thinkers, anyone who does something that's called red teaming, and maybe if you've never heard of red teaming is an exercise that the military and people in security forces do. The blue team and the red team, they'll have two teams. And it's, let's say it's the U.S. military, or it's the CIA, or it's Homeland Security. What they'll do is they'll have a blue team, and those are the good guys. The blue team will come, and they will have their defenses. They know all the defenses for whatever thing that they're trying to protect. And the red team are people that are their friends and their co-workers and people that they know. And the red team is brought in to see if they can defeat the defenses of the blue team. This is why before 9/11, you had paperwork that was drawn up through these exercises with the World Trade Center in crosshairs. And people found this afterwards and said, oh, the government knew this was just a red team exercise. We talked about this yesterday, how in 2015, Italian news agency said that they found video that China was working on these things with bats and with mice, with SARS and with coronaviruses. They found this out. This is old news, and they said they knew these things. And see, the red team exercise is when you try to defeat the defenses, and you do what you can, and you think outside of the box. And what I want you to try to do is I want you to think outside of the box of what's happening in your life. Before this, it would have been good if we did red team exercises for our lives. It's good if you do this just in life. If you just look at your life and you say, okay, does our family have a plan in case someone dies? Do we have a will? Do we have insurance? Do we have savings in case someone loses a job? Do we have extra gas in a can in case we need, in case there's some kind of issue? Just in need. Do you have extra food in your house? Do you have extra toilet paper? This is why in my family, we did not go running out to buy toilet paper, because we should have enough already. We shouldn't be running to the store. You got one roll. When you see that you're coming down, you should go ahead. You plan ahead. I'm a farmer by trade. We think like farmers in my house, at least so long as I'm the head of the house. And so you have things in your home. You have beans and you have some water. You have these things. These are just things that you have just in case. You understand? You don't live, one thing to the next, one toilet roll to the next, one 4-pack to the next. You go to Costco, you buy the big roll, and you have enough. And when you're down to your last 6-pack, you go and you get another one. You understand? But we should red team our lives. We should red team our jobs. We should often look back. All it means is that you take a critical look. Red team is just critical looking at your experience in your life. Red team your experiences. We should look at ourselves and say, am I ready? And for those who did, and I know of many who they had a 3 to 6 month fund, emergency fund, just in case. And those people aren't stressed about their finances. Those who are working on getting out of debt, we have people that, you should red team your health. What kind of things? I had a friend that came by and talked to me recently because they have cancer in their family and they just went and got a screen and found out they don't have cancer, but they red team. They know that this is something that's happened in the past, maybe diabetes or something like this. You should red team your health. Look and see, what is it that I'm likely to deal with, and make a plan for it. Having a plan is not guaranteeing that the thing happens. Having a plan helps so that the thing may not happen, so that you can mitigate it. You can deal with it when it comes, if it comes. But if it never comes, you're ready. And you can help not only yourself, but others. Do you have a will? One of these things that's very nice about having all this time is that there's opportunity to go back and look at these things instead of watching Tiger King. Oh man, Tiger King. I have not seen it, by the way. I really want to encourage you to take advantage of the time. Take advantage of the time to go back at your life and look at yourself more critically. And some of us are being forced to do this. Some of us are in careers or in jobs that we didn't like as much, and we really wanted to change, but we were there because of the money. We're there because, I owe, so off to work I go. You understand? So, yeah. And now some people are furloughed, or some people have been fired, and some people have been let go. Macy's has shut down, most of its stores and furloughed most of its people. You have all of these large department stores that were struggling already. The Macy's in the area where we live just shut down. They just shut down, and it was horrible because a lot of people are like, well, where are we going to go? The Shopko closed. We're in the Northwest, up in Idaho area. And so the Shopko closed and the Kmart closed, and all of these stores were already struggling, and now this thing has hit them like a ton of bricks. And when the smoke clears, what's going to be left? And so you and I should really take a hard look, not only at what's going on in our lives and what is going on in our families. How is your relationships? You're finding out right now, many of us are finding out whether or not we actually like our children or our spouse. And I'm of the opinion in my family, I don't know about your family, but in my family, we have this thing, my wife and I, we said, we got married, we don't believe in divorce. Somebody's going to have to die. Somebody's going to have to die. Now in my family, my father died and then my mother died. It was just somebody died, and I'm not suggesting you kill the person. That's not what we meant. But I'm almost certain my wife was implying it. But anyway. But what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We have to do something. There is something that you and I can do. Our lives are not up to Washington. Our lives are not up to the World Health Organization. They've shown they can't be trusted. Our lives are not up to the CDC. The CDC is not an honest organization. They're not going to tell you everything because of whatever their reasons are. They're going to do what they think is best because of what they are concerned about the outcome. But you and I, we have choices to make about what we're going to do. And there are things that we can do that can help mitigate it. And when we come back from the next break, we're going to talk about that. How important is it that you do something? So, our sponsor for this ad, or for this segment, is you. You may want to know how you can become a partner in health education with the School of Health Radio. Well, you can go to paypal.com and enter paypal.me/School of Health. Now, when you do that, don't put any spaces in, because if you put spaces, it won't come up. But it's paypal.me/School of Health. Or you can enter in 3A School of Health at gmail.com. That's the number 3, the letter A, and the phrase School of Health at gmail.com. You can become a contributor starting at just $5 a month. You can help bring health to the world. Wouldn't you like to do that? There's something that you can do right now to help others just by giving $5 a month. This will support health broadcasts, this specific health broadcast, and you can join as a contributor. That's paypal.me/School of Health or 3A School of Health at gmail.com. You are the one that supports us. So, what's the answer? What's the answer? What is the things that you can do to help deal with the stress? And that's the thing that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about the physical stress that may come from the mental stress. And the mental stress is far worse than physical stress. The spiritual stress, because mentally, many people's outlet is going to church. Going and meeting with the people of God and praying and singing and fellowshipping. And the larger portion of people that go to church are older, and many of the people who go to church that are older are not tech savvy. And so it's challenging for them to connect on Zoom or to connect on YouTube or to connect on Facebook Live or these things, because this is not in their wheelhouse of experience. And so they feel stuck. And can you imagine how older people are feeling right now, who are feeling trapped, especially if you live in an elderly care facility or in a community that's designated just for those who are older in age? Can you imagine? But there's something you can do even if you're there. And I encourage you to do this. Pick up those old dusty training shoes. They used to call them tennis shoes. Put them on and go for a walk. If you can't run because you got a bad hip or a bad knee or a bad ankle, go for a walk. Take off those loafers, take off those flip-flops, take off those sun shoes and put on some running shoes. Go out and go for a run, go for a walk. The other day, my family, we went out and went for a walk. It was the longest walk that we have ever had since we've been at this house. We went for a walk, and I'm guessing it must have been at least a mile. It was only supposed to be down to the end of the block. We were just walking the dogs, and everybody was going for a walk. But we went for a walk, and we decided to walk out, and we went and we got to see the horses. And we stopped and petted the horses, and guess what? Pulled up some grass, and the horses came over, and we got to feed the horses. And the little child that was with us, it was so happy that she got to just pet the horse and to see the horse. It was so nice. And we got to look at the horses, and we saw the neighbors, and we waved at them, social distancing. We didn't go up and say hi. We just waved. And we weren't in a hurry to come back, because guess what? We had time. Exercise, brothers and sisters. If you want to deal with mental pressure and mental stress, go get some exercise. Do some exercise. Go get some fresh air. Get some of those negative ions that fresh air gives when you go out in the out of doors. We're to shelter in place, but we're not stuck there. The park may be closed, but prayerfully there's a sidewalk nearby. Put it to use. If you have a bicycle, go out and get on your bicycle and just go for a ride. I don't know, this thing that they're asking us to do. It could be very well, if they're not careful, the end of our society. But you and I can do something. We can do something. Because before long, some people are just going to say, you know what? Whoever's going to die is going to die. Matter of fact, I'm watching social media and people are saying that already. Now, they don't believe it's going to affect them really, but it is. You know, and it's going to affect, you know, we want to protect our older members of our society. But you know, something scary that came up, and I think I'll bring this up now. I didn't bring it up in the earlier news reports, but in China, they're seeing a resurgence that because there are multiple strains of this COVID-19, at least that's what I'm told, that people are being reinfected. And this is the thing that I'm concerned about, because what happens if people, you know, they last the 2 weeks, which is almost up. And then they say, okay, well, actually the 2 weeks is up. They say, okay, we got to go another 4 weeks. And then they say, we got to go another 4 weeks. And then they tell you, well, actually, we're going to have to do this for the next 18 months or the next 3 years. A large portion of our society is just going to say, and then many people who are in business are just going to say, I'm sorry. We have to go ahead. And so you can do something, because exercise will help you by giving you endorphins, and endorphins have a healing power. You can get your blood moving. You can get your stress under control when you go for a walk, or you go for a run, or you go swimming, or if you just go dig a ditch. You know, I lived in Arkansas, and in Arkansas, you know, we try to put in a garden. And in a lot of parts of Arkansas, they call it Rockinsaw. It's like, you know, Fred Flintstone and you know, Wilma and Bam Bam and Pebbles. Because you're just digging rocks. You know, and in order to get a garden, and I teach something that's called double digging, and you got to go down 2 shovels, and you're just hitting these massive rocks. But once you get out the rocks out, oh, the soil is wonderful. But you know, you can go out right now and work in your garden, because it's that time of the year. It's spring. You can go out and plant some things, plant some flowers. You can go out and plant some vegetables. You can go out and start getting ready to harvest, to put in some things. And because that's one of the ways that you can prepare. You say, you know what? I don't want to have to depend on all of my food coming from the store, because what happens if they shut down global shipping? Or what happens if they shut down the grocery stores? What happens? Things are already sparse in some ways. Our warehouses are getting thin. They're having difficulties filling some things. So you can go and you can do a little something. You can take some of the seeds you might have. Or when you go to the store, when you go to, you know, you can go buy some seeds and start them inside. And let the little green shoots shoot up. And watch them day by day and track them. And maybe you can just make a list of things that you would like to do and just start doing it. You know, all those things that you've been wanting to do for years but never had the time. Now's the time. Now's the time to take advantage of the time that we've been given. You know, one of the things that we're doing in our family, we're trying to take advantage of this time. One of the things that we're doing is this podcast. But we also are calling people today. You know, I called people from our church just to see how they're doing and just to encourage them and let them know that I love them. I called them and just said, hey, I just wanted you to know that I love you and I wanted to pray with you today. That was it. And, you know, and they were so happy, and some of them I had a longer conversation than others. And I plan on doing more of it tomorrow. You know, we can Skype or FaceTime, or maybe you can Zoom with your whole family. We did that this weekend. My whole family Zoomed. Well, and my aunt helped grandma to do it. And it was amazing. Everybody was there. Everybody was saying hi. And some people were Zooming on their little iPhones or their little phones. And so my dad didn't, you know, my stepfather, he didn't want to do it as much, but it was amazing. You can take time to do this. You can do more, and you can do something. This segment of our podcast is brought to you by School of Health Radio. As a matter of fact, you can find School of Health Radio broadcast on anchor.fm/School of Health Radio. We can be found on Spotify and Facebook and YouTube and iTunes or wherever you find your podcast. Just search for School of Health Radio. You can find again anchor.fm/School of Health Radio, Spotify, Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, wherever you can find your podcast. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for letting others know about School of Health Radio. So you can see I got a special fancy desk. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Yes. Anyway, director is telling me, there we go. All right. There's a button on the side of my desk, and my desk rises up, and that way you can, when you do interviews, I don't know what's going on now. Hold on. So this is the comedy segment where the desk goes haywire, and the host is brought to laugh. So okay, watch out where I stick my papers. I stuck my papers over on top of the. Do I need to go up or down? Are we okay? All right. This is the segment where I want to give you the scripture of the day. And the scripture of the day is found in Revelation chapter 14 and verse 12. And I really think it's apropos for today's society. And it says something very interesting. It says, "Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus." This is the time when, if ever we needed it, we need patience. Not just patience with other people who may be COVID-19 positive, or with people who are not being as kind because they're stressed out. But we need patience even with ourselves, with the fact that we're struggling with whatever we're struggling with. We need patience with the fact that we don't know how things are going to turn out, and that uncertainty can kind of drive you down a road that you didn't want to go down. Patience is something that is sorely lacking with this generation of fast food, on-demand video, all of these things. Patience. And I really desire for you to be the best version of yourself, the best version of you. And the best version of you includes you at your best. You when you're kind and patient, no matter what the circumstances are. You when you're happy, no matter what the news is, because you have peace in your own self. And that's today's topic. Dealing with the mental and the physical, dealing with the social and the financial. The mental pressure has to be dealt with. And so as we prepare to close this podcast today, I truly want to encourage you that there are things you can do. One of the things you can do, and sometimes you just reserve this for the shower, but sing. Maybe gather your family together and do a sing along. Get the thing from YouTube or something like that and just sing. Maybe you can put on a skit. We used to do that when I was a child. The children would come into the room and the adults would sit around, and the children would put on little skits, and we would say things, or we would recite things, and sometimes they were religious and most times they weren't. We would do little things that we can do. We would see who can do the most sit-ups, or who can do the most push-ups, or who can do the most pull-ups, or who can do whatever. You can take this time and do something with it, so that when you come out on the other side, and you will come out on the other side, when you come out of the other side, the better version of you is what emerges. This is my encouragement for you. This is my hope for you, because you can be better. Don't let this fiery trial, this difficult circumstance go by and just cause the worst part of you to come out. Some of us, we all deal with it. We all deal with that thing because of the close quarters and the challenges. It's like everybody in the world is in prison right now. But you can be the better version. And you can show forth graces, and you can be kind, and you can be loving, and you can be gentle, and you can be the things that you want to be if you choose to do so. You can't control what's at the grocery store. You can't control what the government does. You can't control what the CDC says. You can't control whether the school is shut down or if your job is shut down. You can't control any of that unless you can. But you can control yourself. You can decide in your mind what kind of person you're gonna be. And when you make that decision, then you can make a plan and say, well, I'm gonna take my shoes and I'm gonna put one foot in, and you can see these are my shoes, these worn out things that are calling and asking me to go take them out for a little ride. Take the dogs for a run. Not my feet, my actual dogs. You can do something. And you can do many things that I can't think of. Things that are specific for you and for your family. And maybe you want to go for a walk by yourself, and maybe you want to go with your wife, or maybe you want to take your children. Right? And so, as we bring this podcast to a close, it's been said, let us have health by choice and not by chance. You and I, we can be healthy, we can be wise, and we can be encouraged. And I want you to be healthy, and I want you to be wise, and I want you to be encouraged. Because this is the School of Health Radio, brought to you by 3asoh.com. We want to thank our producer, which I have so often forgotten to do, but I want to thank our producer, Daniel Ventura, and our director, Candace Smith. And I want to thank all of you for joining us here at School of Health Radio, sponsored by 3asoh.com. I am hoping the best for you. Please do the same for us. We look forward to seeing you again next time at School of Health Radio. God bless.